Well, good morning, everyone, once again. It's good to see you. You look beautiful. So if you have a bulletin, there's an insert which is the outline for the message. We are going to be in Hebrews 11 as we talk about how our faith is tested. We're going to begin with a question. As Christians, why do we have the Bible? Now, I'm not asking generally why do we have the Bible. As Christians, why do we have the Bible? The answer is so God can give us encouragement and endurance that leads to hope. Take a look at this passage in Romans 15:4. It says everything that was written in the past, so he's going to be talking about the Old Testament, was written to teach us. So it was written to teach us. Why do we need to be taught? So that through endurance and the encouragement of the Scriptures, we might have hope. Well, that leads to another question. Why do we need endurance, encouragement, and hope? The answer is three words. Are you ready? Life is hard. Does anybody agree with me? Okay. You don't need me to tell you that this is not heaven where everything is perfect. This is earth where everything is imperfect. And that's why all believers are in need of constant encouragement. God intends for life to be a character-building stage that prepares us for heaven. That's what life is all about, preparing us for heaven. Now, those are my words, but this is how James put it as he opened up his book, James chapter 1. Dear brothers and sisters, whenever trouble comes your way, let it be an opportunity for joy. Does that sound strange to anybody, or is it just me who reads that and thinks, what? What? Be an opportunity for joy. For when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. Okay? So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be strong in character and ready for anything. So God uses trouble to build your character and test your faith. And He gives us examples of the kind of problems He uses to do that. So there are 6 ways God tests our faith. Now there's more than 6, but we're going to be talking about 6. And you may be going through one or more of these right now. And we're going to look at these 6 tests in the lives of 3 people in Hebrews 11 in chronological order: Noah, Abraham, and Moses. And we'll talk about what happened to them, then we'll make an application to us. In all of these men, we see a pattern of how God works. And I believe He works in the same way, by the same pattern today. You see 3 things. Number 1, an opportunity. Number 2, an obstacle. And number 3, an ordeal. So let me explain how that worked. First of all, there was Noah. And one day Noah had quite an opportunity, if you want to think of it as an opportunity. God came to him and said, I am going to use you to preserve the entire human race. Yeah, that's a pretty big opportunity. Not everybody has God saying that to them. So there was this opportunity. But there was also an obstacle. Noah had to work against a non-believing culture and build a boat when it had never rained before. And in the end, only managed to save 8 people. And then there was an ordeal. from the time that God told him to build the boat to the time that he sent the rain was 120 years. Now, I don't know how long it took to build the boat. I don't know who he used to build the boat. I don't know if he used non-union labor. Perhaps he lived in a right-to-work state. I don't know how long it took. But there was a 120-year gap. So there was this opportunity. There were some obstacles. There were ordeals. Then there was Abraham. He had an opportunity. God came to him and said, you know what? I am going to use you to found a new nation, the nation of Israel. Quite an opportunity. But there was a little bit of an obstacle. Abraham was old. His wife was old. And they did not have any children. And that's a major obstacle if you're wanting to get pregnant and the both of you are in your 90s. Then there was an ordeal. God tells Abraham at the age of 75, I am going to make you a great nation. 24 years later at 99, still no child that he had promised. And then there was Moses. Moses had quite an opportunity. God came to him and he said, I am going to use you to free my people from 400 years of slavery. But there was an obstacle. He had to go up against the most powerful person in that part of the world, Pharaoh, ruler of Egypt. And then there was an ordeal. Moses had to spend 40 years in the desert at his in-laws before it could happen. That could be an ordeal for some of you, spending 40 years at your in-laws. For others, it would be really a really nice thing. Now, it is true that God spoke directly to Noah and told him some specific things. He spoke directly to Abraham, told him some specific things. Spoke directly to Moses, told him some specific things, and he's not communicating with us in that exact same way. Today it's through the Word. However, I believe that God is still working in these same three ways according to this pattern: opportunity, obstacle, ordeal. So we're going to look at 6 tests. Now the lesson today is a very simple one. I guess I could tell you. You won't leave if I tell you what the lesson is all about, will you? Like if I say, here's what the lesson's about. Okay, and everybody start walking out. Would you? Okay, I'm going to tell you. Don't give up your faith in God. That's what this lesson is all about. So, test number 1. Test number 1. This is from the life of Noah. Here's the test. Some things in life seem like an impossible task. Some things in life seem like an impossible task. There is something that is put on you that seems like it is too big for you to handle. You are responsible for an extended family member when you're working hard to take care of your immediate family. And you're asking, how am I going to be able to do this? You may be dealing with some kind of a financial burden, no fault of your own. Sometimes people have financial problems, and it's not because they have mismanaged their money. It may be some illness. It may be a health issue. Say, how can I handle this? God gave Noah a seemingly impossible task of building an ark, which basically was a floating box, right? It was a big, giant, floating box, longer than a football field with the end zones. I mean, it had no means of propelling itself. There was no sail. There was no rudder, and there was no motor attached to the back of it. Just a big, giant box. So this is Hebrews 11:7. It was by faith that Noah built an ark to save his family from the flood. He obeyed God, who warned him about something that had never happened before. So here is Noah. He's being asked to build this big giant boat, an ark. He has no boat building experience. He has no frame of reference to understand what is about to happen, because Genesis 2 says it did not rain prior to the flood. No one had probably ever built an ark before. So he couldn't go down to Joe Smith's house down at the end of the street and take a look at his ark. You know, how are we going to curve the wood on the hull, and how are we going to build the compartments? I'm going to go look at Joe Smith's ark. Couldn't do it. So here's the lesson from Noah. We have to trust God when life doesn't make sense. You and I, we have to continue to trust God, not give up on God, not give up our faith when life doesn't make sense and when there's things going on that we don't know how we're going to handle it. You may have a business. How am I going to handle this business? Well, I don't know, but don't give up your faith in God. That was number one. That was test one. Test two. This is in the life of Abraham. Sometimes you have to make a major change later in life. Sometimes you have to make a change later in life, a major change. Well, how about I just read it, okay? Sometimes you have, I'm trying to paraphrase it. Sometimes you have to make a major change later in life. So here's Hebrews 11:8. It was by faith Abraham obeyed when God called him to leave home and go to another land that God would give him as an inheritance. He went without knowing where he was going. So God comes to Abraham at the age of 75 and says two things. Now, Abraham's going to live to 175. He's 75. He's living to 175. So I am making this the modern equivalent of 45. All right? Since he's at 75 and he's not quite halfway. So this is like the modern 45. So he says two things. Number one, you are moving to a new country. And number two, you are going to be the father of a great nation. Now the problem was he had no children. 24 years later, at the age of 99, he still doesn't have the child that God promised. 1 year later, at the age of 100, his wife gives Sarah gives birth to Isaac, the father of the Jewish nation. So he really did his most significant work in the second part of his life. You may be doing your most significant work in the second half of your life. We think that we do all the major things in our 20s and 30s and 40s, and now for me 50 sounds young. So I'm going to tell you a story. This is, I think we have a picture. There he is. That is Kamani Ganga of Kenya. And you see him sitting at the desk on a chair. Those are not his grandchildren behind him. Those are his classmates. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, Kamani Ganga is the oldest person to ever begin the first grade at age 84. 84! And he's in the first grade. You ask, why would a guy 84 years old want to go to school in the first grade? Are you ready for this? You're going to love it. You're going to love it. He said he wanted to learn to read because he wasn't believing what people were telling him about the Bible. It's great. Isn't that great? He said, I want to be able to read the Bible for myself. He made it through the 6th grade before he died. And in March of 2009, he was baptized at the age of 89. And in August of that year, he died of stomach cancer. So, your most significant work for the Lord may be done in your retirement years. Now, sometimes change is not voluntary. You decided to go to school. Sometimes you have to go through changes that you did not ask for. A spouse dies, and you have to make changes. So just because you may have a little bit of age on you, and I don't want to tell you what I think that could be age-wise, doesn't mean that you don't have anything significant to do. Test number 3. This is from Abraham. God's promises are not always immediately fulfilled. They're not always immediately fulfilled. When God answers a promise or a request that we've made, He is never late in His timing. It only seems like He is to us. Now, it is important for us to remember there are some things that God has not promised us. God has not promised that you would find the right person to marry. God has not promised that you will be happy in your marriage. God has not promised that you will find a job. God has not promised that you will finish school. God has not promised that you will recover from illness. What He has promised is that He will give you the strength that you need to be faithful to Him. But waiting for something that's been promised or not promised is a test. Will you remain faithful to the Lord? Will you not give up your faith? So this is Hebrews 11, verse 9. Even when he reached the land God promised him, he lived there by faith. For he was like a foreigner, living in a tent. And so did Isaac and Jacob, to whom God gave the same promise. Abraham did this because he was confidently looking forward to a city with eternal foundations, a city designed and built by God. So God made a promise to Abraham and then to his children, Isaac and Jacob, that they would be given a land to live in. But was it immediately fulfilled? It was not. It would not be totally fulfilled for 600 years. So what keeps you going when you are waiting for God to answer a prayer, to answer a request? How do you keep going? And what if it's not even answered? What at least doesn't seem like to you it's been answered. How do you keep going? The same way Abraham did. It says that he focused on a city with eternal foundations. Will you continue to do that? No matter whether God is answering all of your prayers or He's not, or part of them, do not give up. Stay focused on the city that has eternal foundations. God made the promise to Abraham, but it wasn't going to be fulfilled in Abraham's time. Totally incomplete. And then number 4, and if you wish to say amen after I read this, you may. Not every problem has a quick solution. Okay. Now, there's 2 things. Number 1, you can't solve every problem on your own. Number 2, God doesn't always solve every problem immediately, and sometimes He doesn't solve it at all, at least not from your perspective. You want an example? Paul, he had some kind of a thorn in the flesh. I don't know what it was, eyesight, epilepsy. I don't know, he had something that he wanted God to remove, a physical problem. Remove it. You know what God said? No. I guess he did get an answer, right? The answer was no. He didn't get his prayer answered the way that he wanted it to be answered. But he did not give up his faith in God. At age 75, a promise was made to Abraham that he would be the father of a great nation. 24 years later, age 99, still no child that God had promised. And that must have been embarrassing at parties. And, he was living in the land of Canaan. And those Canaanites, they were pagan people. And I know one thing, pagans always put on good parties. They could put on a party, the Canaanite parties. So here he is, he's at the party, at the Canaanite party. And hey, what's your name? My name is Abraham. Abraham, that's nice. That means a father of a multitude. Yes, it does. How many children do you have? Don't have any right now. Okay. And how old is your wife? 94. Okay then. Right. Abraham, father of a multitude. So one day, 3 angels came to the camp. They were in the form of human beings. And the angels told Sarah, hey, you're going to have a baby. You're going to have a baby. She's in like 90s. You're going to have a baby. And you know what Sarah did? Yeah. She laughed. And Abraham laughed. But God would have the last laugh. Because when the child was born, God says, I want you to name him Isaac, which means laughter. That's right. So every time they called Isaac to lunch, they were reminded of their lack of faith. Laughter! Time to eat! Come home, laughter! They were reminded. Hebrews 11, verse 11. It was by faith that Sarah, together with Abraham, was able to have a child. Even though they were told, too old, Sarah was barren. Abraham believed that God would keep his promise. And so a whole nation came from this one man. Abraham was too old to have any children. A nation with so many people that, like the stars of the sky and the sand on the seashore, there was no way to count them. So not every problem has a quick solution. Sometimes we have to be patient, wait. Sometimes God will give us exactly what we ask for, and that's beautiful. Other times he may say no, or he may give us something different than what we ask for. There may be times when we're not really able to even discern whether something has been answered or not. Don't give up. Be like Abraham. Keep your focus on the city that has eternal foundations. And then test number 5. This is from the life of Abraham. Life is filled with senseless tragedies. Life is filled with senseless tragedies. I wrote something in my notes. After I did the outline, I put senseless tragedies or events. I'm just saying there's some really bad things that happen. There are some very difficult tests in life. A young family member dies unexpectedly in an accident. That's not easy. Not easy to keep your faith, maintain your faith after something like that. I'd like to share a story with you that is ongoing right now. And we have a picture. That is Kerry, that's K-E-R-I, and her husband Royce, as in a Rolls Royce. Young as in the opposite of old. Kerry and Royce Young. And this is just something that's going on right now with them. So let me summarize it, and then I'm going to get into the detail. Kerry grew up pro-life. That is, against abortion, for keeping a baby. She said that she never thought that she would ever be tested in her personal beliefs like she is being tested right now. At 19 weeks, Kerry and her husband went in to do an ultrasound. How fun, an ultrasound. Remember ultrasounds? Aren't those beautiful? They're going to go in, they're going to find out the gender of their baby. And so they had the ultrasound and had little fingers like this. Watch this. Little fingers. You see little fingers. And little toes. Toes like that. Well, they're not as long as the fingers. And there was a heart. Kapoom, 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 kapoom. And they even have a picture of the little the ultrasound on there. And they found out it was a girl. So they named They named her Ava. Ava. But then, something devastating was discovered. Absolutely horrifying. They discovered that she has anencephaly. The top part of her brain and skull is missing. Now the baby's doing fine inside because it's being fed and taken care of by the mother. But the baby is going to live no more than 2 days after it comes into the world. Kerry was within the legal time frame of being able to get an abortion. Now, she never thought about it, and no one in her immediate family did, but there were those who said, get an abortion and just be done with it and let the problem go away. But that wasn't Kerry or Royce. That wasn't their faith. That's not what they believed. She said, no, I'm not going to do that. She is going to give birth to the baby, and she says she's going to love it for the few hours that she has it, and they're going to turn the baby over to the medical professionals. And they believe they can use the baby's heart valves, the baby's kidneys, liver, possibly her pancreas, and the baby lungs are going to be donated to scientific research. This is what Kerry said. This was not an easy decision. That is not abortion versus not abortion. Not that. Just this. I mean, you're having to give your baby up after just a few hours. She said, for the next 20 weeks, I will feel her kick, have the hiccups, and be able to hear her perfect heart beating, all the while knowing we'll only get a few short hours with her when she's born. The baby is due May the 7th. So she's pregnant right now. So May the 7th. If you want more information, you can go to their Facebook page, and that is Kerry and Royce Young. Do you want me to say my point again? Life is filled with really senseless tragedies and events. Doesn't it really make any sense? When an older person passes away, it's sad, but it's really not a tragedy, because nobody can go on living forever. But to have a baby so young and so new, and to think I'm going to feel it inside of you, and the heartbeat, and to think I'm only going to hold it for a few hours. When you're going through the loss of a loved one, explanations don't help. If a family member dies and somebody explains to you why they died, does that give you really any comfort at all? Probably not. The only one who can truly comfort you at that time is the Lord and your hope in His promises. So one day God called on Abraham and He said, I want you to kill your son for me. Yes, Isaac, the miracle baby, the promised son. It made no sense whatsoever to Abraham. But God knew exactly what He was doing, because He already had prepared a substitute. He was testing Abraham's faith with a senseless tragedy. Now in Abraham's case, he's going to be able to get his boy back. He's going to be able to hug his boy again. In the case of Kerry and Royce, they'll be able to hug their baby for a day or two. This is Hebrews 11:17. It was by faith that Abraham offered Isaac as a sacrifice when God was testing. Abraham, who had received God's promises, was ready to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. Though God had promised him, Isaac is the son through whom your descendants will be counted. So what was it? that gave Abraham the faith to make this ultimate sacrifice? He believed that God was working beyond his understanding. That's what kept him going. And Kerry and Royce Young, they too are believers. They know that God is working in some way that is beyond their understanding, that there's just no way that they can possibly comprehend it now. In Hebrews 11:9 it says, Abraham reasoned that God could raise the dead, and figuratively speaking, he did receive Isaac back from death. So the lesson we get from Abraham is this: God is working in ways that we don't understand, even in the unexplainable tragedies of life. Even in the events that make no sense at all, we believe that there is meaning behind it because God is good and God is almighty. Now, does that take away the pain that anybody's suffering today? No, it doesn't. But if you can know that there is a meaning deeper than you're able to understand, it will give you the inner strength that you need to move on and not give up. And then number 6, test number 6. Sometimes God tests your faith through extended suffering. Sometimes God tests your faith through extended suffering. Now, this is the suffering that doesn't go away. Chronic illness, mental disorder, childhood memories of sexual abuse, relational pain. Moses was born a Jew, but was raised by Egyptian royalty as the grandson of the king. And he had to leave the pleasure and the protection and the comfort of the palace to live with a bunch of slaves at their worst point in history. Moses knew that it was the right thing to do to set his people free, even though it meant extended suffering for the rest of his life. And so you ask, how long is this going to last? How long am I going to be in this pain? Faith is like Moses. It's having endurance and not giving up on God. Do not give up on God. Now, you can complain, and you can bellyache, and you can doubt God, and you can question God, but don't give up on God. You can even call God names, but don't give up on God. You know why I know all those things? Because I read the book of Job. He called God names, he complained, he bellyached. And you know what the beautiful thing is? James chapter 5 said we're supposed to use him as an example of patience. I thought patience meant sitting quietly with our hands folded and never saying a word. Oh, it pleased me to find out that you can be patient and complain and bellyache, call God names and doubt him. I am patient. You are looking at a patient person right here. This is Hebrews 11:24. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a short time. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. So a couple of lessons from Moses. Number 1, the way you get through extended pain is by looking ahead to the reward. Sometimes that's all there is. If it is a chronic illness, it's not going to go away. So how do you deal with it? You keep focused on the eternal reward. That's what Moses did. The Bible tells us that the reason why Jesus was able to endure the cross was because he was looking forward to the reward that was ahead. That's Hebrews 12, the opening verses. Moses endured suffering for 80 years because God called him to lead the people out of Egypt. Now, our lives probably are not going to be as dramatic as the Lord speaking to us out of a burning bush. Our lives are probably not going to be as dramatic as being up on a mountain and having the finger of God write commandments on a bunch of stones. Our lives probably are not going to be as dramatic as Moses leading 2 million people across a parted sea. But you know what? In the world where you live and the people whom you associate with, you are just as important to them as Moses was to the Israelites. Moses is no more important than you are in your world with the people whom you love. So if God is not going to give up on us, then we cannot give up on God. Another lesson from Moses. Faith is persevering when I don't feel like it. Faith is persevering when I don't feel like it. This is Hebrews 11:27. It says, by faith he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger, he persevered. Why? Because he saw him who is invisible. You can do the impossible only when you are committed to the one who is invisible. When you are committed to the one who is invisible, then you're going to be able to do the things that are seemingly impossible. So it all comes down to you and me holding on to our faith and not giving up. So I had some things about faith, and I said, hey, I'm going to share these with everybody. And then I got to thinking, hey, how about I just put them on the outline? I don't have to hide knowledge, do I? I don't have to hide. Sometimes ministers kind of like to hide stuff a little bit. Well, we don't know where that came from. It came from me. You're awesome. I'm just going to give it to you. Faith is following God's leading without knowing where. We don't always understand what's happening in life and where we're going. Faith is waiting for God's timing without knowing when. Faith is expecting God to work without knowing how. Faith is trusting that God has a reason for all that is happening without knowing why. Faith is persevering without knowing how long it's going to last. So it is okay for you to ask, why did I get fired? Why did my spouse leave me? Why did our baby die? The test of your faith is what you do when God does not immediately answer your request. Will you still trust Him? So faith is not having an explanation for everything. It's hanging in there and remaining faithful, because that's what God wants you to do when life doesn't make sense. Hang in there. And don't give up. Noah had some difficult things to deal with. He did not give up. Abraham had some difficult things, and he wasn't perfect. He did not give up his faith in God. Moses, very human, had some mistakes, made some mistakes, but he did not give up his faith in God. There was Job in the first 2 chapters of his book. Within 48 hours, all 10 of his children were dead. 10 gravestones marked where they lie. His cattle and his taken into foreign lands. Foreigners possessed his physical land. And he was covered with sores from top to bottom. And I love what he said in Job 13:15 in the King James Version. This is absolutely great. You're going to love this. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. And I don't know of anybody who felt more dead than probably Job. He probably felt like a knife. He felt like a knife had been put right through him. but he didn't give up. And you're not giving up either. Continue to remain faithful even when you don't understand everything that is going on right now in your life. I can't emphasize that enough. And you know what? I don't think you can hear that enough either, can you? I couldn't repeat that too many times because we all need it. Stephen is going to lead us in an invitation hymn. If you have a particular need, if we can assist you in some way, perhaps putting Christ on in baptism, that'd be a great action for you to take, because that's where it all starts according to the New Testament. And if we can assist you in that, or pray or intercede on your behalf, please let us know while we stand and sing.